Transfer rumours, injury updates, and transfer rumours that depend on the injury updates. That's what we've got in store for you this evening, and we shall be covering Lucas Paqueta, Jarrod, Bowen, Michail Antonio, Jarrod, Wolverhampton Wanderers, and the man that links all the rumours together, Danny Ings. Nope, I did not see that coming either, but here we are. Now, before we get into it, if you're new to Hammers Chat, please do subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up. Both things take 2 seconds, helps out the video, helps out the channel, makes me very happy, as would a couple of these transfer rumours taking place as well. And we're going to start with Danny Ings. On Saturday, Percy, who's one of my favourite general football journalists, he reported that Wolves want Danny Ings on loan. Now, the Molineux side were under pressure in the summer. They had to raise about £90 million in player sales in order to avoid any sanctions from the Premier League regarding FFP. In the end, they did pretty well. They took in 140 million. Neves, Nunes and Collins, they were the 3 biggest sales. I think there were 17 players left Wolves in the summer. So they were fine. They stayed well away from any punishment from the Premier League regarding FFP. But the domino effect is, going into the January transfer window, they're being careful and therefore they're limiting themselves to the loan market only. So this is a double whammy good news for West Ham potentially, because first of all, it means that they're looking to bring someone in on loan, Danny Ings, hello. And second of all, they were one of the clubs strongly linked with Jarrod. Now, obviously, we're linked with him, and it just depends on whether our interest on him is genuine. But if we do want Jarrod, and the update on him actually is that they had their warm-up game ahead of the African Nations earlier and he went off injured. So just being linked to West Ham is enough to get a striker injured today. But it's not only him. Boulaye Dia, he missed the game as well through injury. So 2 strikers linked to West Ham, both injured ahead of the African Nations after being linked to West Ham. The curse isn't restricted to the club, it's everywhere. But anyway, I'm sure they'll both be fine for the actual games when the tournament gets underway, but possibly a precautionary sub. But anyway, Jarrod, I'm keeping my eye on him, by the way, African Nations, and Kudus, who's got a game today as well, so we'll see how he gets on, and obviously Jarrod. I'm keeping my eye on anything West Ham related during the tournament. I'm quite looking forward to watching it, truth be told. Anyway, so Wolves were linked with Jarrod, so if they are restricted to loan market, that could be one of our rivals for his signature out of the running. And weirdly, a way of potentially confirming that they won't enter the race for him is by loaning them Danny Ings. So the interest from Wolves in Danny Ings, I believe, is genuine because of something David Moyes has said. Now, this has changed a little bit. The rumours around Danny Ings have changed. However, on Sunday after the game when we drew Bristol City, and I'm not going to quote this directly, I'm going to give you roughly what he said, but you can go listen to it for yourself. But Moyes got asked by a reporter about Danny Ings, basically said, Ings has been linked with the move away, can you comment on that? And David Moyes just said, actually I think Ings came on today and played pretty well, don't you think he had a good game for us? So he completely avoided the question. So the reporter, in fairness, just asked the same question again, basically said, so does that mean you want to keep him? And David Moyes' response was, I think he had a good game today. Moyes did absolutely nothing to deny the rumour that Danny Ings might leave, which isn't really like him. I think sometimes Moyes can actually say no, he's not for sale in any circumstances. Now, Billy McKinlay did very similar in for Jarrod. McKinlay got asked about Jarrod in the pre-match press conference, and he dodged the question a little bit as well, which is all we like him. He's had a decent season, he's away to African Nations, we'll miss him, we'll like him, he's a good player, a good person. But what he didn't say is he's not for sale. So maybe, not only is Jarrod up for sale, but not only is Ings up for sale, but the chance of Ings leaving post Bristol City game seemed pretty good, going by David Moyes' comments. Now, the landscape has changed, and this is where all the sort of rumours come together, because the update today regarding Michail Antonio. So Antonio returned to training last week, slipped, hurt himself, and now he's out for 4 to 6 weeks. So that's the update on Michail Antonio. He's out for 4 to 6 weeks. And as a result of that, now obviously this has changed. So when Moyes gave that update, if you want to call it that, on Danny Ings, he didn't know that Antonio was going to be out for 6 weeks. He also doesn't know, and probably still doesn't know, the extent of the injuries to Lucas Paqueta and Jarrod Bowen. So that's why Moyes' comments, while relevant, may now be out of date already. So Antonio could be out for 4 to 6 weeks. And as a result of that, the reports are suggesting West Ham will not allow Danny Ings to go out on loan, and we're now reluctant to sell Saeed Benrahma as we await the scans. And this is the update for Bowen and Paqueta. They're both having scans today. Paqueta's injury was the one he sustained a couple of weeks ago. Jarrod Bowen's one's obviously a new one. It seems to be a knee injury. David Moyes after the game basically said, I don't have an update on Jarrod Bowen yet, but both players are away for a scan today, as is Michail Antonio, but it looks like he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. It's still bad news, because I have to admit, I was hoping, we found out on Saturday that Antonio was injured again, but I was hoping he was going to be on the bench yesterday, and I was looking forward to seeing him come back, because Moyes' problem in regards to Antonio is continually playing him, even if he's not the best option, even if he's out of form, Moyes would still pick him. But now that Kudus is sort of in the team, Bowen's been doing pretty well as a striker in some games, not all, but some games, and Paqueta's been playing well. When they're all back and fully fit, you'd imagine the front three would remain Paqueta, Bowen and Kudus, so Antonio would possibly find himself on the bench. That's why I was looking forward to Antonio coming back, because now we'd have someone off the bench that could come on and change the game for us. Because when those three play, you look at the options in Rubama, Ings, Benrahma, Fornals, Cornet. It's not the most inspiring bench. You don't think, oh, there we go, get them on, they're going to go and do something. I would have that hope if Antonio was an option for David Moyes to use. So it's disappointing, not surprising, and it's almost becoming a bit of a joke, if you like, and not necessarily a funny one. But it's something that needs rectified. Now, the rumours are that because of all these injuries and uncertainty over the injuries, that we're going to put the Danny Ings loan move on hold if there was to be one. And I think that's the wrong thing to do. I get why the club are doing it, I get it, but I think it's the wrong thing to do. If anything, I think those injuries should actually make us more determined to get Danny Ings out of the club, get his wages, or the majority of the wages, off the books, and go do major surgery in this position in the team. Because coming into the January transfer window, I'd understand if the club didn't feel like they wanted to do major business. If they wanted to just tweak the squad, two out, two in, nothing serious, that waits till the summer, I would get that. And we still will do the majority of the main signings in the summer transfer window, which is going to be a busy one for us, because there's quite a few players likely to leave. But given the injuries to Bowen, Antonio, Paqueta, the form or lack of from Fornals and Benrahma, and I'm not mentioning Kudus because he'll be back soon. Worst case scenario is back, I don't know, mid-February. He doesn't miss that many games. It's not the end of the world. It only seems like the end of the world because of those things I've just mentioned. Our whole season shouldn't crumble down because one player goes to the African nations. I know two have, but we're not going to miss. Assuming Mavropanos is okay, we'll be all right in that department. But our whole season can't just grind to a halt while Kudus is in African nation. We've got enough players there. But because of those injuries, and then you bring in the form of Danny Ings, I think it's even more important that we bring in a striker in the January transfer window. My opinion's changed. I was coming into it thinking if we could get an alternative to Edson Alvarez, because I hate how we play without him. I think Alvarez is crucial to the way we play, and I stand by that. With Alvarez and without Alvarez, there's a significant difference in the way that we play, the way that we can play, and the way that James Ward-Prowse plays. I think there's a huge difference between Ward-Prowse in front of Alvarez, next to Alvarez, and next to Thomas Souček. You almost see three different versions of him. And the one next to Souček, I hate it. I do not like it. I think it's a horrific partnership. So I was keen to see us bring someone in that could at least just cover Edson Alvarez. I want someone in good enough to challenge Edson Alvarez, possibly even play alongside him and boot Ward-Prowse and Souček out the team long term. That's got to be the aim, isn't it? To upgrade your first 11 and those players in your first team become the players on the bench. Now, that's a bit of an issue for West Ham in the past. You know, Fornals was in the team, now he's on the bench, doesn't like it. Benrahma was in the first team, now on the bench, doesn't like it. So it's not as straightforward as that. But coming into the January transfer window, I felt like the centre midfield area is the one that I would like to see us bring in an alternative. But now, off the back of one game, it seems silly, isn't it? Off the back of one FA Cup game against a Championship side. And it's not because of that performance, it's because of the injuries sustained there. And the news of Michail Antonio. I think it's even more vital that we do something as probably a striker. if it was an attacking midfielder and Moyes was to sort of utilise Bowen / Paqueta as strikers, I don't like it, but it leaves the door open for Mbama to continue getting minutes. He hasn't impressed, he hasn't done enough, I'm not saying that, but because he's had a handful of games and he hasn't impressed, I don't want us to suddenly block off the route into the first team for him. I think it's important he still keeps picking up minutes and we keep giving him opportunities, because I've yet to see a game where Mbama's got two of Bowen, Kudus and Paqueta in the team. Burnley away, yes, but the circumstances were we needed to win that game as a Premier League fixture, but usually Mbama's in it all on the pitch. They're not all there, so I would like to see him start up front, ideally with all those three behind him, and then let's have a look at him as a striker. And until that happens, I'm reluctant to go in two-footed. Like I said, I'll do a video about Mbama thus far because I've got a strong opinion regarding him and I wish to discuss it. But I've now got a strong opinion that we need a striker or a attacking midfielder in this January transfer window, almost as a priority. And I don't like the idea of the fact that we're keeping Danny Ings because of those injuries. I think we're looking at it the wrong way. I think there's even more reason to get rid of Danny Ings now, and that is to free up the space and free up the wages in order to bring someone else in. If anything's changed, it's perhaps the level of player that we can bring in. I seen this linked to Willie Nonto earlier, the Leeds winger, who looked really good in Premier League, and this season in Championship I've only seen Leeds play a couple of times. He hasn't stood out the games I've watched. I think he's got a goal and assist or something. The figures aren't great, but based on what he did in Premier League, a good signing. Based on the 2 games I've seen him in the Championship, not so much this season, but I don't feel that that's a significant signing. I almost feel that we do need someone like Givassi who can go into the starting 11 and possibly hit the ground running, because that's the demands that we're going to have on whoever we buy in the January transfer window. If we go get a centre back, it could be a short term thing that just adds a little bit of depth there while Mavropanos is potentially out in a girls away at African Nations. But up front, I think the need for someone to go into that starting 11 has just changed quite dramatically in the last 48 hours, actually, just because of the injuries. Anyway, that's the transfer rumours. I'm just scanning my notes and make sure I mentioned everything I have. The one thing I will add, a couple of... Don't say I don't change my mind, by the way. When I read the subscribers' comments, I'll often change my mind. When I did I had my little moan, my geo moan about I believe Steiden leaking stuff to Fabrizio Romano. And this is where it gets a little bit dangerous, because now we've had this Bergwijn rumour, and you look at it thinking, well, has that come from Steiden or not? Because if it has, leaking the rumour is a little bit irresponsible. Whereas, a couple of people said, he's only leaking done deals, which is fine. But now there's a rumour, not a done deal, in regards to Bergwijn. Maybe Fabrizio Romano's picked it up elsewhere, but he'd be able to double check that rumour with Tim Steiden. Or you'd imagine he could. But anyway, that's not the point I was trying to make. When I first discussed it on the video the other day, and there was some people made really good comments as to why it's not an issue. I read them, I thought, okay, fair enough, that's a good point, that's a good point, that's a good point. I wouldn't say change my mind, but maybe calm me down a little bit, lessen my stance on it a little bit, possibly. A couple of weeks ago when I was discussing about how David Moyes wanted Paqueta to move infield and he really wanted a left winger, and I thought this is where we're maybe going to get an indication as to whether the board intend on keeping David Moyes, because in this window we go sign a significant player to play on the left side of our attack. That would suggest that they've gone and got what the manager's wanted. Maybe not who the manager wants, but what the manager wants. And I would take that as a sign that they think David Moyes is here to stay. Maybe not. Maybe Steiden just agrees we need someone for the left side of attack and he's gone and got someone. I don't know. But that's how I've been thinking about it. In regards to how David Moyes wants to move Paqueta in the middle. And a couple of subscribers replied and said, well, actually, I think he might move him up front. When he says centrally, I don't think he means number 10. Now, I naively fell into the trap of assuming David Moyes meant into the number 10 role. And then when they said, I think you might find he wants him up front, I thought, actually, this makes sense. He hasn't spoken about Paqueta as a striker, but he has mentioned Paqueta being a centre forward or a false 9 on a couple of occasions. We've seen it in the last 10-15 minutes. And we see it quite often in the last 10-15 minutes. But yesterday against Bristol City was the first time that we've seen it from the start. Paqueta centrally, sort of false 9, Bowen to the right of him. And I did think this was an interesting move. Now, obviously, we didn't see what occurred because of the injury. But just food for thought. By the way, I've not got a point to make. I'm just saying what subscribers said because I thought they were really good points by them. I mean, they've arguably kind of been proven correctly. So maybe that's Moyes' plan. Maybe it'll be a left winger we go get so that Paqueta will become the sort of new striker, the false nine, whilst Kudus is away, and hopefully Bowen's not too bad. But fingers crossed for good news over the next couple of days about Bowen and Paqueta and Mavropanos. Antonio looks like he's out for 4 to 6 weeks. And this is going to sound really bad. I've almost written him off for the rest of the season. I've defended Antonio a lot. I don't need to defend him again. Like I said, he would have been a good option to have yesterday. I was looking forward to potentially seeing him on the bench and him coming on and changing the game for us. But for him to be out for another 4 to 6 weeks, we're now looking at maybe the end of February, start of March till he's back. It's 2 months. The season's not quite over yet, but all being well, he'll be back for the last 2 months of the season. We haven't done loads wrong in terms of transfers and contracts. We haven't done too many things wrong, but I do think that contract extension was a bit of an error. Time will tell. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and disappear. I'll be back tomorrow. Please drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe new around here. If you have any topics you'd like to see covered in the next week, because we don't play Bristol City for another week now, it gives us a little bit of time to cover topics we perhaps don't usually. So if there's anything you want me to discuss, anything you think I'd like your opinion, not my opinion per se, but maybe to discuss a topic, and it creates like a forum of discussion underneath in the comments, doesn't it? So if there's any topics of that, send them to me via email, hammerschat@gmail.com. Email me, and I'm going to pinch some of your ideas and create video contents based on what you send me, and then we'll get involved in the comments. But anyway, I'll see you in the comments of this video. Catch you tomorrow.